And I am going to start by saying hello, gorgeous Paula Sheridan.
Hello, gorgeous Sarah. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, and I am very pleased to be sitting and chatting to you for a couple of reasons. Reason number one is, oh my God, do I remember the situation of the women that you coach? And reason number two is that you are one of our coaching revolution cohort. You are one of our mentees. So it's doubly wonderful to talk to you. So leaving the coaching revolution aside, tell me about the kind of women that you coach.
So, yes, thank you for the introduction. It's a very nice introduction. I mainly coach professional women who've had a family, and they did everything right in terms of signalling strongly that they were going to come back to work, that, they want their career to progress. And so they came back to work, and then they get a few years down the line and they think, hang on, this isn't the career path I thought I would have. I haven't really kind of moved on much since I had my family, but somehow my partner has. I'm feeling a bit kind of like left behind and a bit sidelined. And in some industries, they talk in terms of the mummy trap, in terms of, women who've been brilliant employees up to a certain point, and then the assumption that they don't want to go any further once they become mothers. And whilst there are many women who realize that actually I want to focus more energy on the family, and that's brilliant, there are many women who went into this thinking, this is a partnership, this is 50-50 with the father of the children. We should both be able to have good careers and advance, as well as being great parents. And a lot of the time women find that isn't the case.
No. And it's insidious, isn't it? I mean, obviously my children are now, this year they're going to be 24 and 19, and I have no idea how that happened, because the last time I looked, they were like, 9 and 4. But anyway, yeah, that happened really quickly. I really remember that kind of feeling of, because it creeps up on you. It creeps up on you, and suddenly you find yourself in a situation where your lovely partner, who is very important and who is very kind and supportive and all of those things, you suddenly find yourself feeling resentful. And then you feel bad for feeling resentful until you sit down and you go, hang on a second, when did I say that I want to be the one doing all of this?
Exactly. And it sort of creeps up on you. And, it can sound like man bashing to say, oh, women wind up doing all the work. And if that's all that we're saying about it, then yes, it can sound that way. But you have to actually kind of think a bit more about how we wound up getting into this situation, because, I was in the same situation as well, where you suddenly realized, hold on, I'm doing all of the drop-offs and the pickups, and I'm the one legging it out of the office at 5 o'clock to go and pick her up from nursery. How come it's turning out that way? And it's not just the drop-offs and the pickups. It's not just about that. It's not, those are the really tangible things. And there's a whole load of other stuff that goes on as well. And I could read out a great long list of things.
But it's fantastic.
It goes on a bit though, doesn't it? It's all the housework, the cooking, the cleaning, the planning, all the planning. And then as the children get older, it's all the things around making sure that they're signed up for the after school care and that is paid for. And if it's not the same every single day of the week because they have an after school club or go to gymnastics on one day, if it's keeping all of that in your head.
And making sure instrument you have to factor the practicing in, and then they will be in the school play, and that means rehearsals 2 nights a week.
Yeah, exactly. And how you're doing something different every day. So you need to keep track of where are they going to be and when, who is picking them up and at what time. If I can't be the one to pick them up, then I need to remember to ask somebody else to do it. And there's all of that is massive, and it saps your energy. But the problem is that it's all quite invisible. So unless you started out being the one who kind of held all those reins together, which is what happens in maternity leave, you know, the birth mother holds all the reins together and keeps it all running. Unless you've had the experience of doing that and it kind of developed over time, a lot of this stuff is really invisible. So a lot of the time, you know, when people do speak to their partners about it all, the partner has no idea what goes into it all, and why would they?
And you only have to ask.
Oh, don't, yeah. Yes, there are certain sort of catchphrases that people come out with where they are guaranteed to trigger a certain reaction. One of them is you only have to ask, which then kind of makes you feel, but if I have to ask, then I'm still doing all the thinking and planning. What I want is for you to realise that it needs doing and just do it, rather than me having to think and plan and then ask you. And then the other one is I'm always happy to help. Help. We both work full time. We produce this child or children together. It's not helping, it's contributing. The word help suggests that somehow it's one person's role and you're doing something really nice by doing a bit of it. It's not helping, just like it's not babysitting. It's parenting.
Absolutely.
And there are certain trigger words that a lot of women will go,
And it's really hard to explain why you've just lost your shit when he said, just ask me, I'm happy to help. And you go, bang, and he's going, I was being nice. I don't understand what just happened.
Yes, my other half has only said that once. And he said, but I help a lot. Help? You help? He's never said it again.
No.
He won't ever say it again.
No, it's an interesting one, isn't it? What I was going to say something then, and I've forgotten. It'll come back to me. So I have a question. How did we ever get to the situation where our partners are saying, I'm happy to help, you only have to tell me what you want me to do? How did we, as intelligent women, intelligent, capable women, end up in the situation where our partner offering to help makes us want to commit murder?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's sort of two parts to it. There's the bit of understanding where it starts, and then there's the bit of understanding the dynamic in the family. And where it starts is maternity leave, because when you bring your baby home, there's no manual. I don't know how anybody else felt when they brought their bundle of joy home, but I do remember, actually I was still in the hospital, I do remember looking at this screaming little face at 2:00 in the morning while I was still in the hospital, thinking, you're utterly reliant on me and I have no idea what to do.
I'm making it up.
No idea what to do. And you're screaming and I don't know what's wrong. And so you have no idea what you're doing. And so you kind of have to learn as you go along. And you learn by making mistakes and realizing what those mistakes are. So things like, you know, my daughter anyway, don't lie her down flat, because she doesn't like, really just don't lie her down flat. She never ever liked being laid down flat. She always had to be held upright to a certain extent. And then there's other more general things that you learn that people might have told you about. They've probably told you about before, but you just thought, yeah, it's fine. Stuff like, don't let a baby or a toddler nap after about 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, because that will ruin your evening and your night, because it will just be hell on earth them to go to sleep. People can tell you this, but until you've done it, then it's not real. So you learn all of this by trial and error as you go along, and you learn what works for your family, your little unit. You get a sense for how much milk you need to get in, how much they're likely to eat on a day-to-day basis, what they will eat, what they won't eat. So therefore, what needs to go on the shopping list, which toys they like better than others, all of that kind of stuff. And you learn the little language, and then you look at going back to work, and you find the nursery, brilliant, all good. Find the nursery, you go back to work, and you kind of assume that you and the dad, if you're living in a kind of a hetero co-parenting relationship, you kind of assume that both of you assume that you're going to share the workload equally. And as far as he's concerned, the only thing that he can see that has changed, and I completely understand why, is that now the extra task that's come in is the child needs to be got to childcare and back.
And a bag back.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. And so that's the bit where they kind of go, well, yes, we'll both do an equal amount on this, and they do an equal amount on the pickups and drop-offs, and that's all fine. But there's all the rest of the stuff that's going on, and the thinking and the planning and making sure that there is a bottle in the bag that goes to nursery, making sure that they do have some milk, a supply of milk. If your nursery doesn't provide, ours provided nappies, but if your nursery doesn't provide nappies, you get nappies. Right. All of that kind of stuff, all of that really invisible stuff, you carry on doing, because actually a lot of that stuff, it's quicker just to do it yourself than it is to ask. And it's only recently the law has changed in terms of giving men the right to take extended parental leave, but it's still not equal to maternity leave, and so there's a very, very low uptake. So what this means is that very few men, probably less than 2%, I think, take leave after their partner has gone back to work. So very few men get the opportunity to run the household without someone else there. And so it's only by running the household themselves that they get to kind of see all this, oh God, there's quite a lot to do, isn't there? Oh, yeah. How does that work? I don't know how. Yeah. So they don't get the chance to do that. They are, for the most part, most of the men I know want to contribute equally. They want to do their parts. But then what we women do is become our own worst enemies a lot of the time. And we don't let them. So there's all kinds of reasons why we don't let them. Sometimes it's things like if they've offered to go and cook a meal, they say, oh, I'll do dinner tonight. Then you're sort of standing there going, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. Oh, I wouldn't do it like that. And the urge to get in and go, no, do it like this. No, and interfere. It's the most annoying thing you can do to someone. It's just hideously annoying, and I hate it when someone does it to me, and yet I've done it. And then I'm really surprised. Not really. I'm surprised when he then doesn't offer to do it again, because I've just made him feel really small. And it's not just with cooking meals, it's with all sorts of other things, that by keeping control and not letting go and not being willing to drop a few balls every so often, then we're maintaining ownership of all of this ourselves. And we are creatures of limited resource, so we've only got so much energy, and if all of our energy is going in this direction for running the home and all the mental load and all of that kind of stuff, if we're putting all of our energy there, there's not a huge amount left over for other things that might be important to us as well. So it sort of happens insidiously over time that we go back to work after maternity leave, but because we haven't dropped any of the stuff, any of the load that we're carrying around, we're not allowing anyone else to pick it up, then there's not a huge amount of energy and drive to change things at work. And yes, sometimes the workplace can be, there can be some sexism in there, some unconscious bias, some assumptions that are made about, well, women aren't going to be as interested in their career after they become a mother. But that's a generalization. And we do have the opportunity to apply ourselves to our careers if we just can get a bit more energy back.
Basically, what I'm hearing is that although we don't mean to, we're inflicting it on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there can be, it's not as simple, obviously, as just saying, well, just let's get on with it. Because there's identity issues in there as well, in terms of, I love to bake. I really enjoy baking. And I would actually be quite upset if Tom suddenly started doing the baking in the house. There are certain things that have become sort of core to your identity, that I'm good at that. So it isn't as simple as just let it go. But there are a few key things that you can do just to start kind of separating off from it and getting more comfortable.
Can we come back to that? Because I've just remembered what I was going to say earlier. I can also hear myself coming back, so I'm not going to talk much. I was a project manager for a while. And when I was a project manager, what that meant was that I managed the project.
Yes.
I didn't do the work as well.
Yes.
So I was here overseeing, making sure everything happened, but somebody else was delivering the project. Actual grunt work, for want of an unpleasant phrase. And with the home family thing, you're the project manager and you're doing the grunt work. And that's like only a portion of what you're doing, because you've got all this other stuff as well.
Yeah.
And that the realization that actually you can't do this. Dogs. You can't do this and this because you go mad.
Well, yes, there is only so much of you. I mean, to continue their project metaphor, projects are a function of scope, time, money, resources, and then the quality of the output that you're expecting. And if you change any of those things, then something else has to give. So if you increase the scope, you're either going to have to increase the time, or increase the money, or increase the resources that you put in, or reduce the quality. And so what you're doing when you go back to work after maternity is you're increasing the scope of your project. So you can't carry on doing everything else, because there's only so much resources in you. There's only so much time, energy you've got. So you need to find some more resources from someone else, or get rid of some of the scope of the project. So offload some of what you're currently holding responsibility for. Or accept that you're losing out in a different, your trade-off would be that you lose out in career, for example, if you don't have enough energy left in yourself to pursue it.
And it doesn't feel like that, does it? It doesn't feel like you haven't got enough energy left. It feels like people are getting at you. Doesn't it? Because you're knackered, mostly.
Well, yeah. I mean, we all kind of react to stress in different ways. And yes, I become quite snappy. And you take it out on whoever is closest to you, which is likely to be family. You're less likely to take it out on people at work, even though you might feel the resentment for people at work as well. I mean, I hit a big brick wall, partly of my own making, a couple of years after, or maybe 18 months after I returned to work, where I felt extraordinarily frustrated, and I felt overlooked and invisible and annoyed and all of these things. And it all kind of came to a head. And yeah, I was taking it out on Tom at home, but actually my frustration was that my career wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So what I needed to do was change things at home to then be able to focus on career. And there, there were some other things that are all tied up in it as well about societal expectations and who and what society expects you to be, that I then needed to overcome to a certain extent. But then when I did, it was utterly liberating. It was fantastic. I stopped trying to please people and actually then just focused on what do I want to do. And it is completely liberating. And the irony of stopping trying to please people in the workplace was that actually that's when I started to do better. So
yeah, I'm thinking of a couple that I used to know whose son is older than my eldest daughter, and they both had responsible jobs. And when said child, they just had the one, and when he was ever unwell at school, they used to have a bitching match over whose turn it was to go, to take the time off to go and get him. Well, you did it last time. Well, I earn more than you. Well, that's bloody irrelevant. And da backwards and forwards. And thinking back, that was absolutely this thing. And last night I was talking to somebody whose husband is a GP, and the conversation that she had on one occasion was, "But I'm going to work to save lives." At which point there was one life she wanted to remove, I think, just snuff out in that moment. And all this kind of, it's nonsense, isn't it? That it's words in the moment, but they're words that we hang on to, and that they then sort of implant themselves into our little compost heap of dissatisfaction, as it were, and resentment. And and we go, well, you said this and he said that, and you can't let go of it.
No, and especially if someone tries to pull a status thing about that. I did always used to be the person that would be wrong first. And actually, if I wasn't able to go, then I would just ring Tom and we'd kind of work out who was most able to go. But then when our daughter started school, for somehow, and I honestly I don't know how this happened, they had his mobile number and not mine.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it took us all a year or so to work. He kept getting calls, and I didn't. But because I now work from home, it does make more sense that I'm the person that gets called. But yeah, that was quite a good way of resetting the balance, actually. And I do make sure he's on all the distribution lists for school. All his contact details are on there as well. So he's in all the WhatsApp groups, all the email lists, all of that kind of stuff. So it doesn't become my job to own.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
I can absolutely guarantee that any woman with a family who's also got a job that she loves or did love is watching this going, bloody hell, Paula, you're talking about me. What can she do? I mean, aside from contacting you, and I'll make sure that we've got your contact details around this video somewhere, but aside from that, what can she do? What top tip can you give?
There's a couple of top tips that go all the way back to like the maternity leave time, which were quite helpful, or I found quite helpful. They might be obvious, I don't know. There's one around if you want someone to be doing something rather than sitting on the sofa while you do it all. While I do this, please could you do? So that it's not you saying, can you go off and do this and do that, do the other, and I'm telling you to do stuff. It makes it very clear that I am doing something, you are doing something. This is equal. This does this, and then starts the process for taking joint responsibility. There's also, at the moment, because we're all in lockdown and in a very unusual situation and everybody's at home, this has brought a bit more focus on the situation and the division of labour, and I do speak to a lot of women who are suddenly going, oh my god, I'm doing everything. What the hell? You know, I've added childcare and homeschooling onto everything else, and he's just doing his job. And so to make a bit of an inroad into that, a good start is to plan out your week and do it in writing. So don't sort of say, oh yeah, we'll do it every evening before the next day, because you're going to find out that you've got all kinds of clashes and things move. But plan out your week in advance, in writing, so that it then becomes very clear who is carrying more of the burden. If it's about homeschooling and needing to support smaller children, then play to your strengths. So if you love maths, do the maths. If you love the more creative things, do the more creative things. I do have a planner available for download if it would be of any use. So, certainly happy to provide that to people.
Why don't we make that the way that people can get hold of you? If you give me that link,
I can do that.
Put around this video. I've just got to tell you, we've got Jess commenting down the side here going, this is me, you're talking about me. And she said, I always grew up thinking motherhood was my happily ever after, and I can remember the point that it hit me that I had a child, but I wanted more. I still had goals for my career.
Yeah. And there's this fairy tale, isn't there, that we're fed this fairy tale that your happy ever after is having the child, and no, your child adds to your happy ever after.
Yes.
And I do remember an ex, there's a reason he's an ex, as you'll hear shortly, who did say to me, and he was a psychiatrist as well, he really should have known better. He did say to me, so when you get married and have children and give up work, and I was like, what? No. This is not going anywhere. No. That was game over. That was a deal breaker as far as I was concerned.
Jess, you need a cope. You're a superwoman. Well, this goes back to my absolute conviction that coaching is a superpower.
It is. It is, and I discovered it through the workplace, where I had a coach in the workplace to help me work out what the hell my next job move was going to be. And then I found that so useful that I trained as an internal coach. And then when the opportunity to take redundancy came along, I thought, right, yeah, this is my chance. I'm going to go and do some more of this. So yes, and then over the last 18 months or so, I've kind of realised that where I feel comfortable is working in this space with women who want to have what they deserve in the workplace.
And it's not about wanting to have it all. It's about wanting to have your fair share.
Yeah. And, and wanting, you can have it all, but you can't do it all. And that's the core of it. And that you can have it all. You can have career, you can have family, you can have a good relationship, but you can't do it all. And so you have to understand, you have to be able to let go of certain things.
I think that's a perfect place for us to stop. Mostly because we're at 29 minutes and 58 seconds.
Oh yes, as I looked down at my...
I know. And I know that I say this every week, but isn't that a speedy half hour?
That went so quickly. I really did not expect it to go as quickly as that. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you for your time. And it's probably because chatting to you, I have been your ideal client, even if I'm not anymore. And bloody hell do I identify with everything that you've said. And I think I told you, but a nice little thing, when I had small children, when my youngest was about 18 months old, we had a very significant event, which meant that we swapped roles for a bit. So I went to work and my husband stayed at home. And He was somebody, and he was very kind and very a lovely man, a lovely man. And he had said to me on more than one occasion when he'd come home and I was still in my dressing gown at 5 o'clock in the evening and the kids looked like they'd just not been fed and, you know, stuff everywhere. And he'd say, "What do you do all day?" Which, you know, I wasn't even at work at that point and I was like steaming. Anyway, when we swapped roles, I came home one evening and we had a little utility room that had a washing machine and a tumble dryer in it and not much else. And in the laundry basket, well, first of all, the contents of the laundry basket were all over the floor. And in the laundry basket was my very demanding 2-year-old inside the laundry basket, like this, shouting. And my ex was sorting through the washing to put it in the washing machine. And I kind of, you know, she's screaming her head off and he's clearly not okay. And I said, "What's the matter?" And he went, "Oh my God, I don't know how you ever did this. This is mental. Every time I put anything in the washing machine, I turn around to get something else. She's taken it out." And he'd also found that he couldn't put anything in the oven because we had a Rayburn.
Oh.
Was so close to him all the time that he worried that she was going to touch something and burn herself. So he was kind of confining her to a high chair to open the door and put something in and close the door, and then she'd get out of the high chair. And just hadn't done making the mistakes. I mean, obviously you don't want to burn your child, but the whole how am I going to do this stuff, it had a very fast learning.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's brought back a memory that we used to have a travel cot and basically used that as a playpen for that kind of thing. If there was any kind of something you didn't want her like dashing out the front door, so you just plop her in the travel cot.
We used to call it baby prison.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paula, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.